right, it is 5:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. Tonight, the first thing we have on the agenda is the WECAB presentation.
That would be you.
Yes, go ahead.
And I have some handouts, but
Okay.
you don't have to sit and read them right now. At least it's not for the council.
Perfect.
And my name is Mary Hirschberger-Toon. I'm from Victoria, and I am the president of WECAB. WECAB is an organization that was founded in 2011 by Mound and then moved over to Carver County in 2014. And I think most of you have heard me talk about WECAB before. So I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone and hope everything went well for everybody. I'm here to first of all thank you for being a participant city with WECAB. You were one of the original people who joined up with WECAB when we were founded in Carver County in 2014. The mayor and the city administrator asked me for some statistics earlier in November, December. I sent some information. I changed it a little bit, not the numbers, but I made it shorter for you guys. They had a longer paper to read. You have been a contributor financially, and also you have a very, very good volunteer here. I think I mentioned her last year, who is a dispatcher and has been a dispatcher ever since we began in 2014. We have 9 riders from WECAB, and I'll explain how that gets calculated in a minute. There's 9 riders, and I think they've taken over 125 rides to and from Carver, and that's one of the things that we support, is that the people that we take, that they stay in our area, and most people do. They stay in the Carver County cities. I wanted to tell you 2 stories about 2 Carver people. One of them lost his car, really, and his car was totaled and didn't have a car. So we would come over here and take him for about 2 weeks. I think we took him to Amazon in Shakopee. And at 6 in the morning, yes, we were there. And then we brought him home. I think his shift is like 12 hours, so we'd bring him home at about 6:30 at night. So that was one success story. He gradually got a car, or he did get a car from Love Inc., and then of course we didn't have to take him anymore. And that's really the purpose of WECAB, not to be continual transportation forever, and to be supplemental transportation. The second story is, most of our people are around 70 or so. The man that we took to Amazon was much younger. The woman that we took over to Chanhassen quite a few times and still take her, sees a counselor, a Northland Counseling, and we pick her up from her home or from the place that she babysits here in Carver, take her and then bring her back periodically, usually once a week or whenever she feels that she needs to go. So those are 2 success stories that we've had with Carver people. So that's just an example. I put a couple things in here. Our brochure is essentially the same as last year. There aren't much changes in our policy. We try and keep things pretty steady. We are growing leaps and bounds by riders, and I believe that you guys have built or are looking to build a senior living facility. Are you thinking about that?
We have one that'll be opening in February.
Okay, because I know one of our riders from Chanhassen has said, they actually do this. She called WECAB and she said, I am moving to Carver.
Yes.
Will I be able to use WECAB?
Yeah.
I said, yes, you will.
Yeah.
So I thought there was one coming.
Yep, that's Carver Ridge. It's right off of 4th
Okay.
Street or 6th Street as you come down into town.
Yeah, I looked it up and I couldn't really see that it had been finalized or whatever, but
it's final.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So I'm suspecting, is that your first one then here?
Of that scale,
I'm
absolutely.
suspecting that we're going to get calls from these places because we always get calls when we bring the brochures over and everything. So I would hope and I think that the ridership from Carver will grow.
Yeah, it's my understanding that Carver Ridge will have its own transportation
okay,
for folks,
okay.
but for the one-offs, I'm sure you guys might get involved.
And that's a good point, Courtney, because we do a lot of the one-off. Like I can't get to wherever. I can't get to the Chanhassen, wherever they're going. And as you all know, I think we do all kinds of appointments. We do beauty appointments. We do counseling appointments. We do people who have to go to court. We've done those, so it's all kinds of things. So, yeah. So we think we'll grow somewhat with not only that living facility, but also growing like leaps and bounds. I think I'm not sure who it is. It changes on a daily basis. Is it Carver growing more, or is it Victoria growing more?
Depends which mayor you ask.
Yeah. I'm asking you. I'm okay. Because I was at the transportation thing a couple weeks ago, and I saw how these things were going. So anyway, I also put a card that we always have a volunteer dinner that's supported and paid for completely by Presbyterian Homes. And this is a card that we gave to all the people that came. So as I said, I'm not going to go through all of this. These are some things I'm sure you'll read before you go to bed tonight. The map is kind of just a picture of where a lot of riders come, and you can see it starting to spread to the west as we grow and as cities grow. In the past, you guys have generously supported WeCab on a yearly basis with $1,000 contribution. We are a 501c3, so that's legitimate. And so I'm here to say we hope that you'll continue to support us. And with that, I'm going to just be quiet and see if you have any questions.
Thank you for pulling the Carver specific numbers. I remember asking you last year, and then we followed up with the email thread. I know it required a little bit of data mining, so I appreciate it. That's good to have that Carver tie in.
Thanks for the question. It made us take a look at everything that's going on too, so I appreciate it.
Good. Questions, comments?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great
And
service.
I love your new offices and everything.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, and thank you so very much for letting me come to your meeting tonight. Take care.
Thanks, Mary.
See you, Mary.
Stay warm.
Right. Moving on, item number 3 on the agenda, Green Step Cities. Diana.
Hi, I'm Diana McEwen. Who is my audience? I don't know who the members of the council are.
Christy
Oh.
Mock.
Hi, Christy.
Lori
Hello.
Sayre. Glenn Henry. Hi, Glenn.
How are you?
That's it. City staff, city engineer, you know, Aaron.
You're the only male on this council.
Pretty observant.
I wasn't born yesterday. Well, congratulations. Glass ceiling broken. So are they going to pop up here? So maybe I'll just say a couple of things. Oh, there it is right there. Perfect. Here we go. So I'm just gonna do, I assume it's just this way. Perfect. So first I want to talk a little bit about like me. Let's talk about me now. So you know who you're talking to and why I'm here, etc. So my name is Diana McEwen. I work for the Great Plains Institute, which is a 20-plus-year-old clean energy nonprofit based in Minneapolis, but we do regional, national, and international work on clean energy, better world. And I spend most of my time directing the 11-county metro region of a statewide program called CERTS, Clean Energy Resource Teams. And our whole mission is right here for clean energy. It's a program run by a partnership, so Great Plains is one of the partners. And we're really about working with communities to help them identify, plan, and implement local clean energy projects. Whatever you all are trying to do, we want to try to help. We don't do it in policy, politics, we're not partisan. We're just really here to help on the ground stuff. So we have hands-on assistance, we have practical steps for clean energy, lots of events, and we have an incredible website. Those are the partners down below that include the State Energy Office at the Department of Commerce and the university, and we really try to draw on the resources from the state, from academia, from nonprofit, to bring to bear at the community level to help make things happen. So we divided to 7 regions in the state. I direct the metro region, which is about half the state's population, 11 counties. We have staff in every single one of those regions. I think we're the only clean energy organization that has staff in every corner of the state. Each committee has each region has a steering committee. Actually, Aaron is on the Metro Steering Committee, they help kind of just provide guidance overall about direction and help us, like what's happening in communities. What are the topics? battery storage is really interesting right now. Electric vehicles is really, like, what are people excited about? What are people thinking about? And then regional teams, more so in Greater Minnesota, we don't really have a regional team. It's just too big to have a regional team. So it's kind of anybody wants to be part of it. We're all inclusive. Anybody can be part of what we're doing.
Diana, will you say what the CERT is?
Oh, did I not say?
No, you said
Oh.
clean energy and I missed the last part.
Resource teams. And I'm
Okay.
wearing the closest thing that I have to a uniform, which is this fancy polo that we wear when we
Resource team.
work the state fair. So yeah, it's the clean energy resource teams. And so there's the region. We do all kinds of, here's pictures of different projects and things that we've done. One of the things that we do is work on the Minnesota Green Step Cities program. It actually was one of the first things I did when I walked in the door a little over 12 years ago, was to help put this program together. So it's very exciting to me that 2 days from now, on Wednesday, we'll be celebrating 10 years of Green Step Cities. We're having a big kind of to-do, and super exciting. We're gonna have cake. We get cake. So the Green Step Cities program, action-oriented. It's a free assistance program to help cities with their sustainability desires, outcomes, goals. We don't come to you and say, here's what you should do. It's rather, here's a menu of things. Pick and choose from this menu what works for your community, because not all communities are created equal. There are 29, so there's 5 categories of topics, and you'll see more later, 29 best practices, and then a bunch of actions underneath that. And I gotta change that. We've just grown so much, I didn't even realize that it says over 120. It is over 120. It's actually 134, and even this thing we made a couple weeks ago is out of date now, because we just keep growing.
134.
134.
Cities?
131 cities and 3 tribal nations. The tribal nations just really wanted to join, and we're like, okay, it's called cities, but if you want to. So we have 134 members of the program. And so that includes 3 tribes, but pretty cool. Public partnership, easy for me to say. I love alliteration. We have a couple of state agencies, a couple of nonprofits. The university is kind of there with CERT's team, and then the League of Minnesota Cities as a partner from the ground floor, from the get-go. And we launched the program actually 10 years ago at the League of Minnesota Cities annual conference. That is where we do our recognition every year. If you've been there, you've probably seen it or heard about it or seen us taking pictures or do a banner or whatever. And so we have a number of different partners that kind of come together, and kind of an equivalent of 4 full-time staff between the different people and organizations that work on it, the program. So here's Duluth, I think. Is this Duluth or St. Cloud? This is St. Cloud a couple years ago. I'm probably in there. I can't see. I got to take my glasses off. It's self-paced. You go at your own pace. No penalties for finishing early, or no penalties for taking credit for what you've done before. We want you to take credit for anything you've done before. It's free to join. We provide assistance, recognition. We provide a lot of support, and I'll show more in the slides as we go. This is just, this program was developed here in Minnesota by Minnesotans, by a number of nonprofit organizations and cities that came together to try to help do that. So we started in 2007, got a request to look at an opportunity to look at how do cities get recognized for clean energy, and then we kind of expanded it to more sustainability. The legislature asked us for a report, like what would the program look like. We put that together. We convened in 08 and 09 an advisory committee. We did 2 half days in the fall of 2008 and said, here's some ideas we have, and we had this giant group that included city staff, electeds, etc., from all over the state in different roles: public works, city council, city administrator, all kinds of different folks, and got some feedback. We launched it officially in 2010 at the conference. We are award winning. The program won awards in 2012 and 2016. And actually, we just got another award this summer, so 2019, we got another award. And then we just had three steps at that point, and then in 2016, 2017, we added steps 4 and 5. And I'll explain more if you want about the steps and how that works. Again, so yeah, 131 cities, 3 tribes. You know, I think this is just really cool. I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, and especially at first it was like, oh, it's those liberal cities, it's this and that. It is just not. It's big, little, rural, urban, politically varied, you know, just a really diverse set of cities. And you'll see if you look at the list of cities, you know, that are in
The tribal areas, are they local to the metro, or are they?
They're none of them. It's not the metro. It's Fond du Lac, Leech Lake, and I think
You're at Red Lake?
Red Lake. Yeah, I think because they're not in my area, so I don't think about them. I know Fond du Lac for sure. But yeah, no, and I haven't in conversation. I think Prairie Island's about to come on. They're in conversation right now. So I like to show you like who around you are green step cities. So few cities in your area. Jordan has been doing it for a while. Shorewood as well, I think. Shakopee and Chanhassen are newer. So yeah, Eden Prairie is like, they're just way down the line. They're a very high level green step city. They're at step 5. So I talked about best practices, the actions. We rate by stars the best practices as far as like, are you just barely doing it? Are you kind of going above and beyond? And are you kicking it out of the park? So that's at star level as far as the actions that you're taking. And then, so the recognition level, the steps. Step 1 is simply, you pass a resolution saying you want to join the program and appoint somebody as the Green Step City Coordinator. Then you're step 1, you're in the program. Depending on your city category, which B probably, right? So you'll be a category B city, which means to get to step 3, you need to do 12 best practices, complete 12 best practices. So to get to step 2, you have to do half of that, so 6. And you'll probably find once you start putting in the inventory, looking at things, you're like, oh, we've done that, oh, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that. We just need to do this one thing and this thing and this thing, and we'll be a step 2, and we can be recognized at the Green Step Cities at the conference, the Green Step Cities Conference, at the League of Minnesota Cities Conference in the summer. There will be quite a bit to do this year because it's our 10th year, so there's going to be quite a bit happening at the conference. And then when we contemplated after step 3, you know, quickly cities, you know, Eden Prairie and others got to step 3 and said, okay, what's next, you know? And we decided instead of having cities do more best practices, we decided that it was more important to go deeper, and that we wanted, you know, to measure the impact of what was happening. And so that's step 4. And 4, you set a baseline, and then step 5, you have to achieve each year, picking out some metrics and besting them, whether it's higher or lower, depending on what the metric is, like lower energy use, higher, I don't know, something good, yeah, etc. So these are the categories: buildings and lighting, land use, transportation. Here are the ones that, the best practices that fall underneath those ones. It's just too busy to put them all on one slide, sorry. And then environmental management and economic and community development. Each of the best practices has kind of a major benefit associated with it. We have these listed on the website. The website is super rich with information. I'll go into that now, where you can see, like, you pull up a best practice. So here's a local food one. There's the best practice goal up at top, and you know, and then there's the actions. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. You can choose. And up in the upper right-hand corner, you say optional for category A, B, and C cities. So it says that you just you have to just do one action. So for this one, you just pick one action, and you do it, and then you get qualified for this particular best practice. And then it has a summary of it, and then each one has down in the bottom corner the name and information, contact information for an advisor that can tell you, yeah, this works or this doesn't work, or you might want to try this, or you know, here's a resource for getting that done, or whatever it is, you know, resources. And then secondly, in addition to that, when you pick on that best practice action, it'll pop up this thing where you can look at, here's implementation tools, here's the star rating. You can see what a star rating might look like for that one and who's doing it. You'll click on that and it'll show you which cities are doing it. And I know y'all run in the same packs. You're gonna call your friend Bob from Chanhassen and say, hey, I see that you're doing this. You know, how was that? What would you do? You know, like you can really talk to them and reach out to them, etc. Yeah, so there it is. There's one, you know, it's right from the report. So here's Jordan, you know, and what Jordan's been doing on this particular one. Oh, energy, purchasing energy, clean energy. We do surveys. A survey just went out today. We do an annual survey. And, you know, hearing back from folks, what they're saying, what they're motivated by, the cost savings, the recognition, some of the framework. I think some cities, a number of cities, have some strategic goals. You might have stuff in your comp plan regarding sustainability. It's a nice framework for that work, for a commission, for cities that have commissions, you know, etc. Here's just a quote. You know, we have a lot of cities that have just said how much they really liked the program. So here's a city council member, Mike Franklin from Jordan, you know, that, you know, really liked it. I mean, there are best practices you can choose that will save you money. You save energy in your buildings, you're going to save money. There are some that might cost you money, and you can choose them or not choose them. It's up to you. You really get to choose what works for you. There was a picture of us winning our award. And I just kind of try to keep it short and sweet and then answer questions if you find mine.
Sounds good. So the first questions I have, Erin, I know I put you on the spot the last time we talked about this, but if we joined tomorrow, what step do you speculate we were at? I can't remember how you answered that question.
Definitely one. Solution. I would say we're probably either close to 2 or over 2.
Okay. And then how as a city would we manage this?
Can you be more specific?
Would city staff manage it? Would we
Yes.
add it as an additional responsibility of a commission?
It would likely be Aaron's job to coordinate the activities.
Okay. Those are my questions. Questions?
Go ahead, I don't have a lot of questions.
What are we to gain by being a Green Step City?
You know, I think more and more communities want to know that their city's doing things with regards to sustainability. We're hearing it all over the place, and we're having businesses that want to locate in communities where there's green space and there's trails and there's, you know, all these amenities, and millennials and young people that they're looking for that. And so it's a way for you to be transparent about the things that you are doing as a city.
At what cost?
Well, I mean, you choose. I mean, you know, the cost is would be, you know, some staff time. It's not. It's, you know, when we talk to city staff, it's really clear that the amount of staff time is really minimal. The biggest time commitment would be reviewing the things that you've done and putting those into the website, saying, you know, here's what we've done, and, you know, to get credit for that. But beyond that, it's, you get to choose something that you want to work on.
So when you say we get credit for that, we get credit for being a green city?
You can get credit for a best practice in the program based on things that you've done.
Okay.
Yep. So environmentally, and there's a ton of resources that are allocated with RETAP. There's a couple of different programs that are really looking to promote, and when there's limited resources from the university, the state, they're going to look to cities that have already raised their hand that said they want to do some sustainability as the first kind of like getting that information out to cities that you're interested in funding, you know, on electric vehicle charging stations or, you know, whatever it might be.
Well, that goes back to the funding. I mean, electric vehicles cost about 3 times as much as normal vehicles, if not more. And when I go through the 28 steps or whatever there was, of potential things we can do, when I look further down into each one of your subsections, somewhere along the way, a council has to make a decision where it's going to affect all the citizens as far as in their checkbooks. I see things in here about smoking vehicles. Who decides what smoking vehicles are or aren't? I mean,
I don't know.
This
what the
is-
smoking vehicles
well, let's see.
Can I
Where was it?
piggyback off your question?
Sure.
So, if you go so far, and let's say you've accounted for the things that you've done in the past and a few things that you go, and let's say you're step 2, can you just remain at step 2? You indefinitely? So you don't have to go to is it the higher levels where the money starts coming out?
You make those decisions. I mean, some of the best practices, like passing an ordinance. So like, I don't know how you define how much that costs. It's passing an ordinance, or setting a policy on certain, sustainable purchasing. Like, we're gonna purchase paper that has at least 30% post-consumer waste, or even, so there's those kinds of things. And then you can stop at any point. Once a city has not put anything on their website and taken any actions in 3 years, our policy is to turn the city to inactive. You're still gonna be recognized, you were at level step 2 at some point, but it seems unreasonable to continue to, we feel like we need to indicate somehow that the city is no longer actively like moving forward or doing something. It's a pretty soft thing, but you get to decide. You go as far as you want and can stop. You don't have to make this. You can choose the best practices that don't cost any money. I mean, it's up to you. Because to get to step 2, you choose any 6 best practices, any of the ones that you want to do. So you all have the choice. No, we're not telling you what to do. It's up to you to do that.
And you said we're probably already closer or step 2, excuse me.
Yes. I have a question, and then I have just a quick comment and feedback. So my question is, I kind of forget, what's the threshold that staff can make a purchasing decision? Is there a dollar amount?
Yep, 20,000 if
Okay.
it's in the budget.
Okay, so if there was something under 20,000, it was in the budget that, just hypothetical, if we move forward with it, that you're like, yes, this makes sense, we should do this, the staff could just do that. But if it's over 20,000, they have to ask council.
Correct. I mean,
Okay.
there are gonna be,
And I realize it
like for
would have to
example,
be
like
in the
the
budget.
copy paper would be something that we would just go ahead and do if that was like, if we might already be buying paper to that effect. But if it was gonna be something significant, even if it was under 20,000, that was not part of our usual practice. We wouldn't necessarily maybe bring it up for a formal up or down vote, but I would bring it up
On the
under
consent agenda?
city managers updates
Okay.
and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Is there any feedback that you'd like to give? And if there's like, hey, we're concerned about this, then we create a new strategy. The 20,000 is just essentially to do things that you've already talked about as a part of the budget process, and that you don't need to talk about again.
You don't need to create extra administrative work for something that's
Or
more
if an
routine.
emergency pops up and,
Yeah. Okay.
we need a pump now.
Alright, so that answered that question. I like the idea of the program. One thing I would, if it's something that does move forward, I would want is maybe just quarterly updates on how much time staff is spending on it. Maybe just for the first year, just because that's what I feel like we don't know right now. Like as far as our resources, if it's something that's, just a small percentage or ends up being a lot, I think that would for me, that would be helpful to know what we're committing to, maybe, even though we don't see a dollar amount, just knowing kind of quarterly updates on if it's something we move forward with, roughly how many hours compared to other projects. That's my input.
And my understanding is it's pretty minimal, and you could certainly look at the list of cities, and if you know other council members or other people in other cities, call them and ask them too, about how much time they spent. Again, that initial inventory of what you've done, and then it's like you pick a best practice or two to work on for the year. I mean, it's pretty, depending on what it is, you're gonna pass a sustainable purchasing policy, it's probably not gonna take that much time, you know what I mean? So.
At what point do you receive the signs that you see around?
Oh, yeah, the signs are new and very exciting. I just delivered 4 to Scandia and they're heavy. So I think I want to say you get 1 free one. I have to look it up again. So once you join, you can. And I think I have to double check. You might get one free one. But then after that, they're $52. They're really reasonable. $52. So it's up to you, how many you want, where you want to put them. Like I said, scanned, you want one in every corner. So
So the minute you join, you technically are the green step program.
Yeah,
So
once
then the sign goes up, you
once
get,
the
you're in it.
resolution,
Doesn't have to be a certain
you've
step.
entered the program.
one is
Step
joining.
one is just joining the program. And appointing, you pass the resolution and appoint somebody to be
Okay.
the coordinator, and then you can get the signs. And like I said, I know that they're $52. I think there might be a first one that's free, or maybe if you're at a certain level, I can't remember. Maybe step fives get a free one, I don't know. I'm not, do you know? So, but $52 is pretty cheap for advertising, for letting people know who you are, yeah. Yeah, so have you seen them down here? I don't spend a
Oh,
lot of time.
I've seen them around.
Yeah.
I've seen them too, I can't remember where I've
I'll
seen
start
them.
looking
Yeah,
now.
I'm sure.
Yeah, now we
Yeah,
know.
now
It's
I know.
I like this, I think it makes a lot of sense, I think it's a no-brainer, especially in that so much of this is stuff that we're already doing, and if we can tweak a few more things to become
To get
step three.
signs? I'm a
No, to
non-believer.
make, we know, we know.
For me,
Um,
this is about sustainability and environmentalism. It's not as much about saying, because we can choose, remember,
I
what we do. So
understand.
it's not so much about climate change for me. I'm sorry, Courtney, I completely
No, you're fine.
interrupted you.
I've done it to you, it's fine.
Hijacked, sorry. So I guess when I'm thinking about it, for me, this is less about climate change and more about cleaner energy, sustainability, things like that.
There's water, there's pollution, there's waste stuff
Right.
in there, and it's best practices to help whatever you're doing, do it better based on Minnesota examples. I mean, they're best practices based on Minnesota, and so other cities showing what they've been doing and them sharing information, and so just helping you not recreate the wheel and just kind of go in the right direction.
I'll stop.
No, and I like that it's flexible, we don't have to get an all-electric fleet of
No.
snowplows.
I look
by
at it where it's
2027.
more about
That would be
feel-good
hilarious.
legislation.
Sorry.
Especially for the 15 minutes.
I think it's more about feel-good legislation and look what we can do, look what we can do. I mean, how much are the signs? Who gives a shit?
And
It's
it is
not
how
the
much we were
signs
asked
to me.
at what point you get the signs. I'm asking if it's something right away or you have to be step 5 before you are recognized that way.
It's government, and the way I see this is, it's gonna grow. The revenue streams from
What's
all,
gonna grow?
What?
What's gonna grow?
everything in here, sooner or later, you went from a 2-step to a 3-step to adding a 4 and a 5-step.
Because the
Okay.
cities asked for it.
Okay, so when does 7, 8, 9, and 10 come
I-
in? It's government, and it's gonna grow. That's just the nature of the beast.
And I'll just share that it's actually a public-private partnership that includes the League of Minnesota Cities, which is a core
And most of
partner.
the funding from all the people, all the sources that you said were in one way, shape, or another, a publicly or a 501c3. From what was on the screen. So somewhere along the way, it's government money helping organizations feel better about doing stuff that could or couldn't help you out, but you get a sign that says we can feel good because look, we're a green city.
Well, and you talk about how this is
One
growth,
question.
I don't see growth and sustainability and being more environmental is a bad thing.
Mayor, Council, just a suggestion, if we don't have any more questions for our guests, maybe you could let her go and then circle back with the council on next steps.
I'd like you to stay for a little bit
Okay,
longer. I
okay.
might have a few more questions
Yeah.
if we're talking here. So I prefer you, if that's all right, that you stay, so we don't say, oh, now she's gone. So Glenn, it was one question about the signs, and all about the sign, but it's fair to know that. Now I completely just lost my train of thought, so don't go anywhere, 'cause it's gonna come back in like a minute here. So someone else go ahead and I'll come back.
Well,
to
if we
it.
just go down to the efficiency of fleets.
Oh, now I got it. I remember.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Go, Christie.
All you had to say.
So, and maybe you mentioned this in your presentation and I missed it, but for applying for different grants, and Aaron, maybe you know too, do you find that having this certification is helpful when applying for grants? And do you have any examples of it? And I'm asking you really off the top here. so.
Yeah, I do think so. Especially the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has environmental assistance grants they've had in the past, and they've been doing the Volkswagen settlement money as well. That includes charging infrastructure and replacement of diesel engines and such. And they use a lot of different criteria, but I think that there's a definite interest in funding a city that has already kind of, again, like I said, raised their hand, said we want to do this sustainability thing. They're going to continue to kind of support and invest in those cities. There's nothing set in stone about that, but there definitely is, I see a correlation.
Okay, Aaron, do you know of any that you can think of that you either know of or have heard from another city who've used any of this? Like I said, didn't
Not off the
anticipate
top of my
this question.
head, but the thing that I appreciate so much about the program is the resources that you tap into really quickly. That there probably are some grants that we haven't even thought about that exist somewhere, that someone on the Green Step page knows about, that if we called and asked a question about paper, they could probably give us some type of lead in to say, hey, we know about this new program that's coming up. So I don't know specifically, but the resources that you get, I think, would be really helpful.
What would next steps be to bring it in front of council and to pass a resolution to head for this? Okay. I'm in favor of moving this forward. Get the impression you are.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I don't
That
want
was
words in your
That was it, yes. Yes, I'd like to have this at a council meeting, so we can figure out which way we want to go.
Yes. Okay.
No.
Not surprising. Okay. Do you have any more questions? Hearing none?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much.
Absolutely.
All right, item number 4, communications plan for the Jonathan Carver Parkway Improvement Project.
Yes, I have handouts going around. My name is Nicole Schmidt and I work at Bolton Link with Dan and Aaron. And I've been hired to help with the communications on the Jonathan Carver Parkway project, which is starting right now. It's gearing up and we're in design.
Can I interrupt you just for a second,
Yeah.
Nicole? So just a really small detail, but it'll be of note, is that the contract is actually through Carver County. And so Carver County hired Bolton to do the communications work. So this is subject to a future joint powers agreement that we'll have with Carver County for the entire project. So think of construction in a bucket, communication in a bucket.
You and your
local roads in a
buckets
bucket.
again.
So this is,
It's a step in the.
This is different from our traditional relationship that we have for city engineering services with Dan and Aaron Schmidt, et cetera, so thank you.
Yeah. So I helped last summer with the 2019 communications for construction in Carver, so I've been familiar with helping out and communicating with residents. So this is going to be a pretty major project, as we all know. It's a major north-south connection through the town. And if you flip over to the back side, you can see the different tactics that we've outlined in our plan that we're going to use to connect with the community in design and construction and really make that connection with stakeholders so everyone can know what's going on and feel comfortable giving their feedback. So during design, you can see we're going to be branding this project so it's recognizable in the eyes of the public and they can recognize the project if they see it on a sign or on the website or on social media so that they can be up to date and really keep their eye out for that since it's going to be a very major project. We're also going to be doing website updates and social media, and how that will work is I will be creating content and then providing that to the city and the county to share on applicable pages so that we're going to have a base that already has a following rather than starting from scratch and having to build that up. Another item we're going to be using is email blasts, which will be hosted on the project website, and that will allow users to sign up for project updates. I know that there's also a capability for text message updates, so if there's an impact as far as like closures or new detours, that can be sent directly to their phone, which is very convenient. And then during both design and construction, I'm gonna be acting as the community liaison, which will consolidate the workflow of the public asking questions and then me maybe taking 80% of those questions and being able to automatically answer those based on me being involved with the project. And then if there are those questions that require more attention, then I can find the appropriate contact, so that will really help streamline that process and give a face to the project for the public. And then we're also going to be creating a construction staging video to help make the detours and the staging process more visual so that people can get to know how this is all going to work, since, like I said, it is a major north-south connection through town that's going to require a lot of communication. Also during design, we're going to be having a lot of face-to-face meetings with stakeholders and the agencies. We're going to have a couple open houses, which will be a good chance to get everyone in a room and talk through any specific concerns they might have. Once design is done, then we're going to carry all that through into construction, which is going to start next spring, tentatively, if everything goes according to plan. And I'll be attending the weekly construction meetings and managing a project hotline and the email, so that once again I'm acting as that main point of contact for the community, that they can receive quick answers and timely feedback on what they might be wondering. And we'll continue with the website and social media. We're also going to be holding monthly stakeholder meetings with the fire department and first responders and stakeholders who want to attend, so that they can get the latest information about what's happening and be confident what's coming up within the next month. And I'll also be doing the notices and the neighborhood mailings and acting as a community liaison through this. And a neat thing we're going to do is have before and after drone flights of the corridor, so that the community can see the big change that did occur, and they can see those side by side, which I always think is pretty cool. And then at the end of it, we're going to do a ribbon cutting and have a feedback survey so we can see how the public perceive this whole process and see what their thoughts were. So I guess, do you guys have any questions on the project, or Brent, do you have anything to add?
I think, so one of our main goals here tonight is if there are expectations, no matter how small, that you'd like to share with Nicole, as far as notice periods, style, really anything. This is a huge project. You'll be getting a lot of feedback from residents, and so we want to make sure that the communications represent what you want shared and how you want it shared, without having you there at the computer. But if you have some of that feedback tonight, we'd love to get it so that we can be thinking about that as we start preparing communications.
I have two things. I noticed that you have the schools as the stakeholders, so that I really appreciate, because I think that's going to be important, that communication mentions the different elementary schools in the bus. My other thing is I would want the communication to not look expensive.
Sure.
Like, as much as the drone sounds cool,
Yeah.
is it really vital for the project?
Sure.
It just sounds like fluff. Same with, yes, the color's great, but is every brush going to need to be colored?
Sure.
So I just feel like we're spending their money. They don't want anything to look like we're being very classy. Where it's like, no, we kind of need the communication to be, the messaging's important,
Sure.
but I don't want it to look expensive.
Sure, and I think that's a good thing to say though, and I think that if we can be simple and direct with our message, make sure it's easy to understand, that really is the goal, not like all the bells and whistles. I get what you mean.
Yeah, because a lot of this isn't required of us to communicate to them, right? We're just doing this more as just good working relationship. I mean, I like the idea of getting the feedback at the end too, to learn.
The thing is if we don't communicate this to us, Brent's phone's gonna ring, my phone will ring,
so
your
we're
phone
being
will ring,
proactive.
so.
But it's,
And the drone flight, and there's an example I can send from the city of Chan has it. It's more than a before and after. It's but they did it as almost like an animation, and the county's gonna take care of that, where they'll show you in advance like what the project will look like as if you were flying over it, because I think that's one of the things that we struggle with, is that sometimes it's hard for people to look at a piece of paper and see a plan and say like, oh yeah, roundabout here and turn lane there. And Chanhassen did it for their 101 project, and it really, I think would help folks to see that, and I think that can be done for a pretty low cost.
Okay. Well, maybe look at that, I've never
Yeah.
watched one.
Yeah, I'll send the
And
link.
But I
It's
get the
help-
idea where it gets that buy-in, so that they
Yes.
see, okay.
Because
this
it's
is
hard
how
when
we
you're in the
impact it.
moment, like in construction, well, what are they even building? Is this even gonna be helpful? I think if they have something in their mind that they're like, okay, I get why this is taking so long, I can see the amount of change that's going to be occurring, you can often get a little bit of, you know.
Yeah, I
And
like
I've
that.
seen the Chan video,
Okay.
it is really helpful because, you know, we don't have a roundabout in the city of Carver, so for folks to see cars going through the roundabout and that it actually works, you know, that would be helpful. And even think about, you know, the 2019 street improvement project. You probably couldn't really visualize what that now looks
Right.
like until it was done.
Yeah.
This helps with that, it
Okay.
makes it more tangible. Oh, the road's gonna be right there, oh, the trail is on this
Yeah.
side and not that side, you know, it just, it makes it tangible.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily for buy-in, but just more
Understanding.
making it real,
Okay.
yeah.
And to be clear too, like I don't think anything really on this list is like just doing it for the sake of doing it. I think that a lot of this for our design projects and construction projects, this has work to communicate it effectively and just get people in the know and give them a chance to learn more about the project. But that's still, I'm glad you brought that up.
So I have a comment about so this is coming from the county and the city joint.
Yes.
We have just the city colors on here. What is Carver County's?
Sure. So I
Colors.
guess Carver County is green and blue, or is blue, Carver County's colors.
The only reason I ask this is because this is a joint project. And I think that if we put it out as this looks very city of Carver, which we are part of this, but I don't want people to get the wrong impression that somehow we are paying for this entire project ourselves and it's just the city of Carver. This is the county road being changed.
So,
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Yeah.
So, to be clear, this isn't being sent out to residents.
No.
Correct.
correct.
And
Okay.
Scott Smith with Carver County is their project lead, so everything that's being put out, he'll have to approve, just like I would sign off on it.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that a little bit of clarity, but go ahead.
Okay, perfect. That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
something-
exactly.
that's
So
what
it's
I kind of
gonna be
feel like.
approved by both, and as of now, we're also hosting the project website through a county page as well. So it will be linked through the city page, but they're gonna have that county view when they're visiting the project website as well. So I don't think that it will be very one-sided or perceived that it's just the city.
So just an alternative opinion, I don't have any objections to the look of these communications being really Carver-centric, because if somebody can't get their kid to school at Carver Elementary, or if Lori's utility line is struck, they're not gonna call the county to complain and gripe. The city's gonna get, I would
Sure.
say, while this is an 80-20 funding split for the county to pay 80 and us to pay 20, I would imagine that complaints, questions, et cetera, is gonna be an 80-20 split as well, but with us getting the majority of the concern and the
Sure, I can
issues
see
and
that.
Yeah.
So,
I just don't want it to be left out that this is a joint project.
They'll be
Right.
jointly branded,
Okay.
they always are.
Okay.
And we can clarify that,
And that-
like in the first newsletter or something too, just so it's reiterated so people
Yeah, I
understand
think
that.
maybe, yes, some
Typically-
clarification like that would be
Oh, I'm sorry.
great.
Mhm.
Go ahead if you have an idea.
Typically, they would have Carver and City of Carver and Carver County, both
Okay.
on the communication, so people see that it's both.
Okay.
That's normally what happens.
just the feedback that I had was mostly kind of lessons learned from last year's street improvement project. If, heaven forbid, worst case scenario, the electric line is struck again and half the town is without power and AC and all that kind of good stuff, will there be outreach and communications regarding that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So through our email blast system, anyone who is subscribed to that, they'll get an alert right away. So that's like the primary source that we can do. We can push it out through social media, we'll post it on the website. So we have those different avenues to combat if there were to be a situation like that.
Okay.
So we're talking about going, pushing that info out. The county has the text message service too. Are you going to, I know you said something about it, are you going to promote that as well? Because
Yes.
people who are maybe not even are home or out somewhere, but you want to get out your phone. on you,
Exactly.
And that's going to come up faster.
Yep, we actually used it on the 1321 project in Prior Lake, the text messaging system, and people just loved it. Like,
Yeah.
I had residents call and say, I just can't wait to get the text until the road's open. So it seems to work really well for getting updates out, so.
Okay.
There's no texting and driving.
I know, so make sure that you're.
But I hate county text now, and I
Yes,
really appreciate it. I
Yes.
like the system, it works well.
Yep.
Right.
I think one of the harder parts, and we'll try to figure this out, is like on the 2019 project. If any one of you see something that you don't like, you can call me and, you know, in a relatively short period of time, Dan and I can figure out something to get it done. But like we did talk about, this is a partnership, so I can't just go out there and say that needs to change. We have to go through the county, and we want to use our communications liaison, because all of a sudden, if we have 3 or 4 different people taking on segments of the communications, things are gonna get kind of messy. So the speed that you might be used to when it's just a city project is not gonna be the same on this project. And so we might bump our knees and skin our elbows a little bit here, but we'll try to work a lot of that out, but it's not gonna be exactly the same.
Okay. Just 2 more things. I remember when we did the walkthrough for the 2019 street improvement project, it was really, the message that was shared was really clear that this is not gonna be a project without inconveniences. So it's a major street project. If we can kind of take that same tone of
Yes.
maybe, not that we can't be upbeat, but this is gonna
Realistic
be
about it,
a
yeah.
headache. And this is gonna be something that you're gonna need to leave your house 10 minutes earlier for, or whatever, on a school day, you know? So
Yes.
just so that we're kind of realistic.
And I think
be
having
that.
this, in the design, starting that messaging early on, will get people familiar with it right away and get that in the back of their mind so that they're not just like, wake up one day and the road's closed.
Right.
So,
Right.
that's
Well,
it.
that'd be funny.
That'd be great. That kind of goes to my third point, is, you know, just really over communicating when things are gonna be closed and when accesses will even be different, even if it's not completely closed off, because we had the Sunny Ridge, folks didn't think that there would be necessarily construction or stuff going on in different areas. So just, folks, you know, folks don't read it because it's in the newsletter.
Yep.
They don't read it when it's posted on Facebook a week in advance.
Yep.
You know, just over communicating stuff that hopefully somebody would stick.
Yes.
That's all I have.
I'm glad the pitchforks will be chasing you.
I know, isn't it fun?
I would like to see an outreach to Belle Plaine,
Yes, the community.
Scott County,
Jordan is a
Jordan.
big one that
well, everything up 169 that cuts off, even down to St. Peter for that matter, Mankato, simply because we have a lot of flow from that part of the world that comes up and through.
At least through the sewer, I know people
Yeah.
who are still drive through, or not still, but who are driving through from the sewer. That's very fair, because people use that as their thoroughfare to get to 212.
Yes, they do. And so we need to communicate with them well in advance that there will be a major project and that there will be major shutdowns throughout the summer of 2021.
Without access to 212, or direct access to
Yeah.
212.
And the reason I say this is
Just tell them it's closed.
when we,
Yeah, we closed the whole thing.
when we did the JCP project before with the underpass, tried getting Stantec ahead of the game. It's gonna be shut down now. It's gonna be, and they were a little slow to the ball game, and the phones are ringing. If we could, the sooner people know that there's a major project and what it's gonna look like, I think that's all relative information for them. I mean, even going to the news medias and saying, oh, and there's coming up there'll be a major shutdown in traffic for this. Cause they
The
do it
Traffic
for,
Herald would be a good one to have that, don't you think? I mean, not that they wouldn't already, but.
yeah, Southwest, yeah.
Yep.
But even just a blurb somewhere where more than just Carver residents and Jordan residents and the Chaska area people will understand that traffic patterns will be changing for the majority of the summer, well into the spring, or well into the fall.
I think that's the beauty of the video too, is that that's like, whether it's written blurbs in newspapers or you're sharing the video with the city leaders, like whoever it may be. It's like, here, this is happening, please promote this video, and then they can just run with that.
The goal of these is to try and get so much out there well in advance that by the time the job done, they're like, all right, be done with it already, and it's just,
Yeah.
and the other side of it is build some excitement. That's what that video did that Brent mentions, that I've done a number of these, and one of the biggest problems that we deal with is people have no idea what you're building, and all they have is agony for a year. And so you build some excitement with what's gonna be there, and try and build this anticipation for it's gonna be great. Can't wait till it's all done. And by the time the job starts, they know exactly what they're gonna be in for the year. And that staging video explains that here's the traffic implications, here's how really bad it's gonna be. And so this is what you're telling them. And,
Are we gonna be able to put, the sign, some kind of road closure ahead sign on the turn from Jordan off of 169 to come this back way after 212? Cause that's where a whole lot, we will.
Yeah, and that's part of the plans we go
Otherwise,
through.
they're too far gone once they've turned, made the turn.
Oh, yeah.
There's gonna be a
Thing is
whole.
bad with accidents. I drove all the way up from Mankato.
Oh,
Yeah. There's gonna be a whole series of staging reviews and different ways to attack the project from a staging perspective, and then the part of the communications is we decided advanced notice signage. What does it say? How long does it need to be out there? All these things kind of get built into how do we get the message out to every single person that drives this corridor and every single person that's next to the corridor on what to expect. And so, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on here, but it all comes into a strategy that's really custom to the project. And
I just really, I'm really strong about that. If we can get a sign at that turn on 169 from Jordan, it is incredibly important.
so,
And
What
even
are we
pre-warning
Double
sign
digit,
too,
yes.
like
so
months.
give me that location again. Exact.
Corner,
County Road 9 and 169.
169 and 9.
the Jordan stoplights, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Yep.
waiting, because one of my offices there, I will drive that way, I see everyone
Yeah.
makes that turn.
Well, I don't know if it's standard practice, but it might be good to share with folks alternative routes too. Like,
Yeah.
I can leave my house, all of us can leave our homes, and we don't have to take JCP to get out of town.
Yeah.
Especially now with Big Woods Boulevard opening up, that's an option,
Yeah. We can identify the signed detour, we call it, but then there's also like local access routes or alternate
Right.
routes that we can outline for residents or people who live in the area.
Just for residents.
Because that's the give and take, like you don't wanna outline too many, otherwise all that traffic will just be routing through town.
Yeah.
So, the give and take.
Yeah, you got some exciting discussions ahead on stage.
Yeah.
And so by the time, Nicole's gonna get the staging results after you've had a chance to review some of these options, and then she's gonna figure out, well, how do we communicate this so it tells the right message.
Any other questions?
I have something, I'm just more curious. So I hear JCP, Jonathan Carver Parkway. Do we hear County Road 44, wait, it's 48? 11. Do we hear that a lot, or is that,
It goes both with the county shared today that they prefer to call this the Jonathan Carver Parkway project.
Okay.
So that's what you're gonna see for branding.
I wonder what they'll put on the signs.
yeah, 'cause
Probably
I wonder-
both.
It would be nice if you put both, because I don't know enough what people,
Call it.
Refer
I
to it
had
as-
the same
it
question.
probably depends when you moved here.
I think
Yeah,
exactly
surely.
that's.
We,
Yeah.
we can have some additional discussion
Yeah.
because there's probably a lot of folks who do the commute that think of it as 11 and not Jonathan Carver
Right.
Parkway.
That'll be,
Or whatever your
we'll have the
GPS
detour
is, yeah,
signs.
whatever
The
your
detour
map
signs might be a
system
little
calls
different
it.
than the branding.
Yeah.
Or do you even know what it is with GPS?
Right, I know, and I'm like a quarter mile.
Yeah.
Fleet Farm exit.
Yeah.
There.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, city manager's report.
I just have one thing, and I'm not sure how many folks have been following. I've shared a little bit. I know some of you are on Facebook a little bit more than others. But we've gotten quite a bit of feedback on our street maintenance, street maintenance and franchise fees. And I've done some work on responding to some questions. But I want to be delicate on what we share and when we share it. And so before I would put something out there, I wanted to run this by you. And I'd probably put this together as a normal slide package for your listening session on the 21st. But some of the messaging that I feel like that the city is getting is that there's like a mismanagement of budget, and that we're in this position because its money's been spent in other ways. And part of that is true. There's always priorities within a budget, but I wanted to at least attempt to simplify that by saying there's a choice for franchise fees, there's a choice for property taxes, and there's also a choice to say we're going to scale back the speed of street maintenance, or we're going to eliminate things that are currently in the budget and use that money and put more of it to street maintenance. The thing that I feel like will be a challenge, and I think that you'll hear on the 21st, is there appears to be a little bit of a schism or kind of difference between like what constitutes a new resident and what constitutes people that are still here. And I'm not sure when that, what the criteria would be for a new resident, whether that's you're here for less than a year or less than 5 years or 10. But the reason I bring that up is that there is this, it feels to me at least, an overwhelming piece of like the new residents and the developers should pay for street maintenance in the city. And I'm not taking a position on that other than to say there are, as most of you know, like state statute and case law regarding what we can make developers pay for and what we can make, what types of fees we can charge. And so trying to take a very complex issue and simplify it can be very challenging. And so I share this with you to try to gauge your interest in saying, is this no good deed goes unpunished, where it's like, this, people aren't going to get this, let's just wait till we get to the council meeting, or should I float this out, or would you rather see something else? Kind of an oddball question, but one of the more significant issues I think that we've had as far as public response in a while since City Hall, and so I just wanted to get some feedback.
I have some feedback. So I do think some of this might be a little bit of no good deed goes unpunished. I think this may possibly add more questions that we're not available to immediately answer. So then we might be starting up a storm again of things that become sort of this hearsay that we can't follow up immediately with facts right behind it.
Right.
A couple things on here too that maybe aren't addressed in just this quick look over here is that it says, for example, the city school, if this were to go out, I think it should say, it says the city, but I think that means residents, right?
Where are you referring?
Right here. So it says, for example, the city
Like
school.
city as in the city of Carver. Like,
Okay, but the city of Carver is funded by taxpayer dollars. So I think if we just say, well, the city's paying for it, I think that's a little bit.
No, he means like city offices, if we have cable paid in here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what
see, okay, well, there we go.
Yeah.
I took it like all the way up here.
I do think if you didn't get it, then it should say like city
Right.
offices or the
Yeah.
fire station or something,
Yeah.
Or I just take city out of both
Which
of
gets
them.
to the point
Just
of
think
like,
it's school and churches.
if we have to explain it that much, it's not
Right.
gonna be something that folks are gonna get
Yeah.
at the ready.
Yeah.
It's a use tax, let's face it.
I got one more, and then, sorry, and then the other one I was gonna say is that when we're talking about the 218, if you went with the franchise fees at 218,000, or versus the property taxes, this doesn't tell a story behind it either of saying, then if we decide not to go with franchise fees, then we need to look at prioritizing that some things that the city wants, we don't have, but we have needs, right? So we're growing, but for budgeting purposes, you just you can't always get what you want, you know what I mean? So when we say, you know, we start to have a push for, the city really wants the turnip park, well, I'm just trying to pick
Right.
something so
Yeah.
non-committal to anything, but we say, okay, we realize that's a big city want, but that is not a need. So I think there's a big gap in here of not being
Then
able
try
to
to
describe
address that
those.
in the red
Mhm.
section,
Yeah.
but I hear what you're saying, I don't disagree with that at all.
So, just sharing publicly what I've shared with you personally, taking half a step back, you've done a terrific job of answering and reaching out to everybody on Facebook.
Yes.
Folks who are not kind, not professional, and this is something that you don't have to do. So, I think you're doing a great job, but know that you can pull back from it at any point because it's not your job to be the Facebook police of the Carver Life page. That said, you're doing a great job.
Well
I
handled,
appreciate
though.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I do agree with Christy that I think just kind of throwing this out, especially on social media, is
It's been a little bit of a learning lesson in that there's probably, and I'll just take myself, but there's a lot that I take for granted that people know and understand. Not in a, I know more than you, but we just deal as a group, as an organization, a lot with all these terms and how things are funded. And it's a reminder that when we communicate it, not simple in a bad way, but it's like we really need to reach out and meet people where they're at as far as our communications go, because just in looking at this and hearing some of your responses, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of numbers. It's like, you know, city versus, you know, capitalized city, there's a big difference in that, and so, I'll present this at the, part of like a council summary when we get to like the meeting, so we're there to talk about it, but I won't just float it out there.
and I think as we get further down the road with this, potentially when it becomes decision point or maybe even a day after the meeting, this could be something that we share after we're able to kind of share more information more robustly. You know, this hasn't necessarily been well, I guess we have seen it in a council meeting, but, you know, we haven't gone into extensive detail on it, so this is a deeper issue, I think, than something we just want to float out there and let.
I think this will just have more questions, like I said, that we can immediately answer. Where if we have this at a council meeting, people can ask that question right there on the spot because they're gonna have an immediate reaction to it, and we can provide them with the information.
Just as a part of that presentation for the council meeting, and I'm sure you're already planning on it, but some of the questions that you've been answering, I think would be good to have in that.
Yeah, so the plan is
Presentation.
I'm gonna read every comment that we've gotten both via the website, and I'm gonna use those Facebook, and then when it's appropriate, I'll provide my response.
Okay.
Just to kind of close the communication loop, because some are just standard, I oppose or I support, etc. And then some have maybe 2 or 3 embedded questions, so I just don't wanna leave those hanging for those that are there.
Things like pointing out that this has nothing to do with your water bill, you know.
Those are like questions or issues related to like water or like garbage, I'm not gonna include in the listening session because they're not germane to the topic.
Right.
So,
But I think it's important to point out that we are talking gas, we're talking electric, and we're talking cable. We're not talking, you know, we're not talking internet, we're not talking water. So,
Thank you for the feedback.
all right.
Burn this.
No, no.
Just a joke, just a joke. It'll be a part of the council presentation.
It's good and stuff. Appreciate you.
You wanted
This was very ceremonious. Oh, okay. Anything else? All right, city council requests?
No.
I have something that actually I just thought of in this meeting when Diane had her presentation is if at a future meeting, if something could be presented on how much does it cost our city to create and write and implement an ordinance? Just like if there's a trend or a, I mean, not anything to be answered tonight, or if it's something that Larry
I
has a
give you
good
like a
idea,
very
or
like
just a ballpark?
boring answer, cause it depends on the ordinance. I mean, there
Okay.
could be, like I'll use a recent example, the pet store ordinance. I mean, that's not gonna take a whole lot of time. My instructions to the city attorney were, you know, take the city of Eden Prairie's ordinance and put city of Carver and, you know, let the council
Stamp it with
decide,
clause.
like if they want any intricacies. But if you take, like the zoning ordinance, you know, that's gonna have, when it's like 20 pages long or, you know,
Like 220,
Okay.
come on.
Don't sell her short here on this one.
1,000 pages
Thank you,
long.
that's fair.
Then it's gonna take considerable time, and part of it is approach. If it's, even if an ordinance is long, it might not be controversial, and you just don't spend a lot of time with it. But if it's a new, you know, policy or practice, then there's gonna be extra time spent with the city attorney or the city engineer looking over, like, okay, what are the options? How do we approach this? And so, you know, I could give you like the standard for like a basic review and, you know, publishing it in the newspaper is probably gonna run you, you know, a couple $1,000, but you could spend, you know, 5, 10 if it's something of significance with like public hearings and rescheduling, and if there ends up being another party involved, like a business that's gonna be really impacted. You know, frankly, the franchise fee ordinance could be something that could be expensive as you go down, and if there's a lot of iterations where it's like, okay, we're gonna have the fee be at $5 or $2.50 or $3, or, you know, you get a long ways in the process and decide not to do it, or, so it could be really any ordinance where that's more complex is gonna increase the cost.
Got it. No, that helps, because I really had no idea even a range, but it depends too on if you have additional parties involved.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
how many reiterations might be
the
needed.
primary cost is gonna be legal, you know, the softer costs are gonna be staff time, but we're here anyways, we have to be, you know, we could separate that out, but it's a matter of spending time on project A versus project B.
We're already paying.
Yep.
Yeah, do something while you're here.
You're not working on that 200-page.
Thousand
Zoning
pages.
ordinance, 200.
I have one comment, it's only, isn't necessarily for the rest of council, I just remembered it. On 6th Street, when you're going up, we have some of those trees that overhang here and there. Whose responsibility is that? There's one that's about to break off, I believe, and it looks like, I just noticed it today, and it would possibly fall onto the trail. It's that far over.
So, practically, it's property owner's responsibility if it's outside of the right of way. Realistically, in the past, the city on 6th Street has gone in and trimmed those up. So if you have that, we can do that.
So if you want to let the,
You know, is it,
it's up towards the Carver Ridge end, and it's coming downtown. So it'd be coming over, it's hanging over the trail, and I just saw it today, and I went way home, and it looks,
I'll
Like it's
drive
getting-
that way on the way home.
that's it.
I just want to piggyback on your question regarding the cost per ordinance. I wasn't looking at what the city's investment cost was for the ordinance, have that done. I was more or less looking at the after effect on how much it's going to affect each citizen down the road. You know, if we implement and we go into this green step stuff, and now we're gonna start buying,
Electric snowplows.
Exactly.
Or solar powered.
you know, it's
I love solar power.
stuff like
I
that.
don't think it belongs to the snowplow.
That's the long-term effect of what is gonna be a cost to the citizens that I'm more concerned about than the upfront costs. Yes, there are, but it's the long-term that I'm looking
I think
And
the
the Lord-
flexibility of that is we can choose the stuff that has a really low.
at. Yeah,
or
but I
no-
don't wanna have
no cost.
Brent go jump in a canoe and paddle downtown Minneapolis to go to his,
But look at the time, you lost me at Brenton.
Yeah, I know.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I appreciate that so much, Christy. Can I have a second?
Second.
We have a second, motion by Councilmember Mock and a second by Councilmember Sager. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.